Good afternoon, New Bedford. We're here with Mayor Mitchell here to talk about recreational marijuana. So last week, we had 3 new host city agreements signed with 3 new businesses that'll be open up sometime in the future in New Bedford. It's kind of a hard timeline to figure out right now. But we're here with Mayor Mitchell. Thanks for coming into the studio.
Yeah, great to be here, Mike. It's been a little while, and
Yeah.
this is something we've talked about before, but we signed 3 host community agreements and submitted them for consideration to the City Council. And that's a big step in the process. There's a much longer process at the state level that these applicants will have to go through. But I think the punchline here is that these are all good deals for New Bedford. The facilities will be located in commercial areas, not in neighborhoods. There's one right on Cogswell Street, just off of the 195 off-ramp. There's one on Nauset Street where the Mitsubishi dealership used to be. And there's one on Tarkin Hill Road right across the street from Burger King, in the same plaza that the Tropical Smoothie just moved into. So, those are all commercial areas and they're not, on top of schools or neighborhoods, which is what, the City Council and I all agreed was appropriate. But the deals themselves are good for the city. So they'll all have to pay property tax. They'll all have to pay a 3% sales tax. They'll also have to contribute 1.5% of their sales to New Bedford-based organizations that provide education and prevention services in our school district. So, that will be more money that comes in. They've got to favor New Bedford residents in their hiring process. They have to, there is strict restrictions around signage that they have to follow. So you're not going to have like this, big, garish sign that, it's flashing and drawing attention to the facility. The signage is going to be, it'll have to be very modest. And the security plans have to be, airtight. And so this is, I think, people, we've heard lots of people who, there are lots of people who don't want these things at all. There are lots of people who, want them a lot. I think most people agree that if you have them, they've got to be cited appropriately and they have to pay the city money. And these agreements check all those blocks.
Yeah, so I got a bunch of stuff here. We already have some questions. So yes, Jacob, you can ask questions. And he asked, and this is something that's big in the news, obviously. Pot shop corrupted elected officials in the Fall River. What safeguards are to prevent that from happening in New Bedford?
Because okay, the short answer is we have a different mayor here, so we don't do business that way. That's period, full stop. I honestly think that the way this is set up generally is can lead to that kind of corruption that you've seen play out in Fall River, right? There's where it's as you and I were talking off air, where it's illegal at the federal level, but legal at the state level. There are lots of the money in this industry is in federally insured banks, and as a result, there is a lot of, evidently, as we learned this week in Fall River, a lot of money that's just not in the traditional banking system and doesn't receive the same oversight that other investments would. But we're proceeding in the way that, in a very deliberate way, reviewing all these things very carefully with a screening committee that includes a member of the City Council, Ian Abreu, and we'll see where the 3 that have been approved go from here.
Yeah, I'd say it's a stark contrast from Fall River to New Bedford as far as the timeline has gone. I think Mayor Correa has given out like 13 non-opposition letters, and per the U.S. Attorney, some of those are paid for. Where Fall River has been much more slow, deliberate process. I think the first approval was actually like manufacturing inside of a warehouse, which is the first thing that'll probably come to fruition before these 3 retailers will, right?
It's hard to know what the state's going to approve first or not. I will tell you one thing. So we're not in the business of comparing ourselves with other cities. Fall River can make its own decisions, and what played out there this week, I feel so badly for the people who live in that city. They deserve more stable leadership. All that said, I don't think we'll be doing any business whatsoever with any of the folks who are, involved in that stuff. If any of those dealers, who are involved in some of those allegations want to come to New Bedford, they probably should think twice about it.
So the three companies, Treebeard on 1 Nauset, South Coast Apothecary at 115 Cogswell. That's the one near Popeyes. Is that one brick building that's been kind of holding out forever? Seems like it's like
one
the
of
only.
original original piece of the Fairhaven Mills.
So he held out
complex.
for the big money, it looks like. And then Metro Harvest on our Tarkin Hill Road up in the north end.
Right.
So it's kind of spread out through the city, the three.
Well, they're all in commercial areas, right? So we have zoning regulations in place that were unanimously approved by the city council that restrict the placement of these facilities in commercial areas and apart from, removed from schools, churches, daycare centers, parks, and other sensitive facilities. So I think it's the responsible way to go about it. Again, we had a screening committee that vetted all these things before they were recommended to me. The three that we signed, host community agreements, were all recommended out by this committee. And that's that.
None of the applicants actually live in New Bedford, though. Are they outside entities coming into the city, kind of?
I don't, offhand, I don't know. I think as far as I know, the parties, the principals live outside the city, yeah.
So I was looking at the employment part. It's not as specific, and maybe you have more specifics. That's why we have you here. I remember when the casino was going to come in, it was like they were going to guarantee 20 or 25% of the jobs to
Right.
residents. What it says here is the company must, to the extent legally permissible, give priority to qualified residents of the city for employment at the facility. Is there any specifics, or is that just saying they got to try hard?
It means they have to do an honest effort, I mean, which is about as far as we can take it. The casino host community agreements didn't guarantee 20% employment. What they said was they would give their best efforts to achieve 20%.
But there was a hard number of 20. There's no
It was a hard number,
for this.
but they weren't required to do it. There wasn't a quota, right? So those quotas are hard. They are legally suspect in many circumstances. So, we try to go right up to the line and pushing folks to hire local.
And then you start with the money part here, and so they have to do an initial $25,000 payment, and then 3% of gross sales, which is defined by the Cannabis Control Commission,
Right.
I believe, right? For local communities, going to set up to 3%
Right.
max. So they get $25,000, and then if they have to give 50 grand or 1.5% to charity, not charity, I guess it's for the substance abuse programs, correct? Is that
Right.
how it has to go?
Well, no, it's for New Bedford-based charitable organizations that provide education and prevention services in the New Bedford Public Schools.
So that'd be like Seven Hills or those kind of things, or something that's more of a treatment.
So
thing, right?
I don't know whether Seven Hills would be part of that. Seven Hills does have some programs in the school department, so maybe Seven Hills would be eligible, but, there may be others as well. We can't pick winners. We
Yeah.
can't say you've got to give to, the Y, right? In an agreement like that, there are issues in state procurement. There are restrictions in state procurement law that prohibit that. So we just try to establish a category of services that we'd like to see supported.
So does the city council move on to get more specific as that money comes in, or who actually determines that?
No, the city council's role is a thumbs up or thumbs down on the contract.
So you would actually say this is where the money goes, the mayor's office?
No,
or-
I wouldn't say that. No, it's left up to them. We've described.
Oh, so they put it out and you approve it, kind of, the actual business?
No, they have to determine who's, let's say if there were 4 nonprofits that provided those education and prevention services in the school district, it would be left to that company to determine who the recipient should be.
Okay. And that doesn't go through approval? They just have to do it?
No, because if it were left up to the city to approve that, then there's a chance it might run afoul of state procurement law, and so we don't want to do that.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I guess so. I guess my question is it leaves a lot of leeway to the business, who they want to give it to then. Because what if, can the business set up can a family member set up a treatment kind of thing or
Well, the
educational
school
thing?
department still has to let them in, right? If the
Yeah.
school department doesn't think they'll provide worthwhile services, they won't get the work.
Okay. And then safety, obviously, they have to work through the police department to make sure, and I think safety means probably like cameras and make sure someone can't just break in and raid the facility.
Well, they've
those kind
got,
of things.
yeah, they have to have a plan. I don't have grave concerns around safety. I think the state has a number of measures in the cannabis regulations that, will ensure that there'll be heightened security around all the dispensaries around the state. So, I think you could imagine that there would be some, risk of theft either by others or insiders, and that's what you want to guard against. And so, they just have to, the bottom line for me is that they have a close working relationship with, an open door policy with the New Bedford Police Department.
Yeah, so I think it was always a concern of, I don't know, does the hiring go through like a query check, or how does that work? I think that was one of the things when they were trying to open a marijuana facility on the bridge. One of the complaints from those were you have to query check the folks, make sure they don't have criminal history, those kind of things. Is that something that is that applied specifically to this industry outside of normal other businesses?
Which part?
Would that be an additional thing they have to do? The workers there, they have to go through query and those kind of things.
Yeah, there has to be some sort of background check, right? You don't want to have someone who's a career drug dealer, working the counter, right? I think most people would agree, or whatever your position is on these things, that wouldn't be a good idea.
Does the city kind of do a expected revenue from this for the first year, second year? I think Fall River was estimated to be 1.3 million in their second year of operations to go to the city. Does the city of New Bedford have an estimate on that?
I think honestly, Mike, I've seen
that's even if they get
projections
approved, right?
there's a bit of a gold rush for these things around the state, and I think it's there because I think there's an assumption that the market is enormous. I don't know. It's all pretty new, and so we know that if they are successful, we'll get some revenue in, but we're not budgeting based on any projected revenue. The city budget's not.
Yeah.
In our city budget, we're not assuming that we're going to get a certain amount in. We're assuming zero.
Okay.
And whatever we get on top of that's gravy.
Okay. So I guess right now, after a city does their approval of the whole city, it goes to the Cannabis Control Commission, correct? And that could be its own timeline.
It goes to the Cannabis Control Commission and the Massachusetts, the Mass Department of Public Health have rules in it, and I couldn't give you a chapter and verse on it right now. There are a number of hoops under the cannabis regulations that they have to jump through.
Yeah, I think people at home need to understand is once the host city agreement doesn't mean you're going to see anything near term opened up, because then they have to get the first approval for they invest money in a building and those. I know they have the plot out, but before they start putting the money into the actual business, so this could be. The first one in New Bedford might not be in 2019. It could be 2020, right? We don't know.
Oh,
There's no real.
I doubt it would be in this calendar year.
It's got to be next year.
Yeah. Look, people ask me and I get asked every once in a while, well, why is it taking so long? And it's taken a while here. It's taken a while just about everywhere across the state. There aren't that many of these open. There are lots of applications. So, for instance, the city of Boston, right? A city of 700,000 people, there isn't a single one in Boston yet. So, look, this is all new in Massachusetts. It's going to take some time. We've done our part in negotiating host community agreements that are really, really in the interest of the city of New Bedford, and that there's the sites that are, in the right locations, and they're paying the city a considerable amount of money.
And then the signage,
If they're
obviously.
successful, right?
Yeah. And I guess the signage was an important part. You don't want these big neon lights and flashing by.
No, and honestly, we don't want
yeah.
billboards. We don't,
Yeah.
we've seen highway billboards and, for other ones, and we didn't want them for New Bedford. So that advertise New Bedford as a prime location for marijuana dispensaries. I don't think that's necessary for their business, honestly, but again, I think that we've heard from a number of folks that wasn't something they wanted to see here.
Yeah, and it says kind of signage has to kind of match the area. They don't want it to be too crazy maybe compared to what the area already has.
Right.
Trying
Right.
to stand out with flashing lights.
It can't stand out. Yeah, and if they're in a building that's, they have to make it look decent. That's so many words is the requirement. There are building material requirements, there are setback requirements, there are parking requirements, there are landscaping requirements, all that stuff.
So the key is this is the beginning, not the end of this is something that's just starting to go to the next phase. You got this host city agreement. Now there's so many more things that have to happen. All three might not make it to the finish line and have an open business, right? One could make it, all three, you don't know.
One can make it all three or something, or none.
So part of the process was you got to make sure they have the funding, make sure is that part of the approval Because I know there was like a
There's
screening.
so there's a threshold screening step that, allows the city, and this is for the committee that we'd set up, to ensure that they have, sort of the basics in place, financing and a site control. There's some, initial vetting, background vetting as well. And so having crossed that threshold, and not all the applicants did, the three that were recommended to me, the committee felt were appropriate to go forward to negotiations, and they did that, and, we banged out the agreements.
Yeah, so if you're at home, you can click the link. We have the press release you guys put out last week.
Yep.
So today was a groundbreaking public safety complex. Can you describe what that was?
It was a very significant event today. We had, we broke ground on the first fire station, first new fire station in the city since 1956. It's going to be a combined facility, police and fire and EMS and emergency management, right on Brock Avenue, at the corner of Brock Avenue and Rue Street, where the St. Anne's Church, the former St. Anne's Church, is located. And it's going to be a first-rate facility, and it's really going to reflect, our continuing effort to modernize our public safety services. We want to be effective in ways that are relevant for 2019 and frankly 2119, as these buildings last 100 years, or meant to last 100 years. So it's going to be really well designed. It is well designed. It'll look great in the neighborhood, and I think that's the other big thing. Not only do we want it to work well for fire and police and EMS operations, but we also wanted to stabilize the Rue Street neighborhood. That's a neighborhood, as we know, that's had a number of, it has struggled over the years. It's gotten better in the last few, but it needs an anchor. And the church and the school used to be that anchor in the neighborhood, and they've been closed up for over 20 years now. This new facility with police and fire and other public safety officials coming and going and having eyes on the neighborhood will do, I think, wonders for that neighborhood. And so it's a big day for everybody who lives there as well.
What's the timeline to actually open it?
So for something of this size, right, it's a big facility. It's 4 bays, right, fire truck and ambulance bays, and as well as police and fire offices there. It's a sizable building. It's going to take over a year to build. So they've already started in on it. They've already started in on the demolition of the church, the demolition of the school, the preparation of the site. So it's going to take some time, but it's a major project. This is the city has not ever built a public safety facility like this, and as I said, it's the first new fire station since 1956. It's the new police station that's built for the purposes of being a police station since the North End station was built, which is probably in the early 60s, late 50s or so. I think someone can probably write in and tell me when that was built, but it was a long time ago.
And this facility was meant to combine the South End police station, one of the fire stations.
2 fire stations.
2 fire stations.
Yeah,
so it's going to be 3 into 1, basically.
Actually, it's going to be 5 into 1.
EMS as well.
So EMS and animal control are in Station 3 on Kempton Street, near the corner of Rockdale Avenue. Then there's Station 6, Fire Station 6, which is on Purchase Street. And then there's Station 11, which is on Brock Avenue. So you got all those together. And then you have the police station on Cove Street, which was originally the Harriman Library, and the police moved in there in the early 60s. So that wasn't built as a police station. It's never really worked well. The building hasn't worked well as a police station since then, almost 60 years.
It looks nice from the outside. But.
It looks nice, yeah. No, but so those things are all things that are going to be consolidated, and we're going to be in a position, frankly, to we hope to sell off some of those buildings to put them to better uses. The 5th building was actually right across the street from here at 1204 Purchase, where you're moving some.
Oh yeah, the training spot.
Right, so we're going to be moving some of the public safety assets out of that building as well. So
is that going to be? Rumor is it going to be a parking lot. Is that what's going to be across the street?
Ultimately, we'd like to have a parking facility there because, as you know, being here, it isn't easy to park here because of all the the development in this building, the Quest Center, and just the total lack of parking, off-street parking. So we'd like to see if we can pull that off.
Is that what's tied to the blackout brownouts? Is because of this new facility? Is that?
It is, so that's a great point. So once that's consolidated, the need for the blackouts will go away because you'll combine those two stations.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So I appreciate your time today. We just
Yeah,
want to get the,
just like that, just 2 topics today, Mike.
yeah, but I thought the marijuana thing is I've probably been beating the drum a little bit more than most of like, hey, we're one of the few cities that don't have it. But it's after what happens at Fall River, though, it
Well,
makes
it's not, I mean, Boston doesn't have one.
yes. I mean, in the South Coast, I was thinking, but now you look what happened at Fall River. When you rush to go things, you find out what.
Well,
might
that wasn't
happen.
their only problem.
And they also had some of the places was approved too fast, and they had they had problems over there. So I would say
I can't speak for them, Mike.
yeah. But I think what I'm doing is almost like an apology, saying, hey, I think the slow part of this is
Apology accepted, Mike.
yeah.
I appreciate that.
But I think the slowness of it was frustrating for
I'm
people.
giving you
but-
a hard time. No, this is all new. You don't want to screw it up.
Yeah.
And that's why we had a screening committee with lots of eyes on these things. And, people are sensitive justifiably about neighborhood impacts. And so we wanted to get it right, and I think we did. These are good deals for the city.
Yeah, and I think, we're not going to see, most likely not going to see marijuana retail in New Bedford in 2019, but 2020 expected, I would say, right?
Yeah, well, 2019's already
Yeah, we're almost,
three and a
summer's
half
just
months
ending.
left. Yeah.
Yeah, so I appreciate your time. Thanks
Yes.
for coming in.
Yeah, you bet, Mike.
We all set?